IVM.
$100. That's all it takes to begin your journey with Bitcoin and Ethereum. No, really. With CoinSwitch, you can start investing in over 100 cryptocurrencies with just 100 rupees. On top of that, there are zero charges for deposits and withdrawals, so you can trade, buy, sell, however and whenever you want. All of this, plus their extremely intuitive interface, makes CoinSwitch the perfect app for beginners in the crypto space. But don't take my word for it. Just download CoinSwitch for free and try it out for yourself. If you'd like more information on cryptocurrencies, tune into A Show About Crypto with me, Rohan Joshi, my new adventure on IVM Podcasts. CoinSwitch, kuch to badlega.
Hey everyone, welcome to Shunya One, episode 148. Amit, we are really counting these down.
Getting close.
Yeah, we have some very interesting guests lined up already.
But today's guest is really exciting as well. These guys are doing some amazing work.
Yes, absolutely. And Abhishek is someone I've known for a while at Pratidip. So he's also Pratidip Mafia.
Yes, he is.
He is now, of course, building Kutum, which is a very, very interesting new space. Not too many folks have probably heard about what they've been building, or the fact that it's that potentially large an opportunity.
I was amazed when I was hearing it, right? Because when I first heard about Kutum, and I heard some stories about Kutum when we first joined Pratidip, right? That this is coming and stuff like that. And the first things I heard were things like this is, it's like a Facebook groups for Indian speaking, Indian languages and stuff like that. Those are the first kind of things that I heard about that. But then when we spoke to him, the kind of way that they're thinking about this is completely different and really, really interesting.
And also the fact that it's going after a massive yet, a massive organized sector, I would say.
Yeah,
he's going after registered groups. He's going after registered sort of organizations. And India has so many of them. I had no idea. Me and you are probably not part of too many or any for that matter. But yeah, I think strangely enough, a lot of people in the country are. So let's take our break and go talk to Abhishek.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshid. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Nankali podcast every Wednesday. सिर्फ IVM podcast app या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.
Hey Abhishek, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Great, Shirat. Yeah.
Good to see you after quite a few years. I remember catching up with you in the Pratidip offices.
Yes.
Way back.
Yes.
Seems like eons ago, I'm sure. But it was probably, couple of years?
Yeah, I think 2.5 years back we met.
Exactly. Well, I guess at the time, of course, we were, I was meeting you as Pratidip and you were, talking, I remember very passionately about the product and how you care about all aspects of product. I remember there was a very interesting chat we had then.
It sounds like it was contentious. Was it a contentious chat? It sounds like it was contentious based on the way you both were talking about it.
Well, I think it was a very passionate conversation about how analytics should be.
Yeah.
Of product analytics especially. So yes, it was a fun chat. No, I think it was definitely engaging, and it was more a feedback conversation from Abhishek. So that's what the background was. Also, I want to know, just after that probably is when your journey as an entrepreneur with Kutum also started. So, and you are one of the Pratidip Mafia, as we have been hearing that phrase a bit. Tell us about that, how you met your co-founders and exactly what happened from your transition from Pratidip to Kutum.
Yeah. So I think the root cause of Pratidip Mafia was a hackathon, which was organized by Pratidip. And we were basically divided into teams. So there were about, I think, 6 teams participating in that hackathon. And we had to come up with an idea and implement at least the technology part of it and show it to the judges who were there at that time. So obviously, our current idea is entirely different from the idea that we picked up at hackathon. Animal's idea is exactly the same as they were at the hackathon. But the seed was the same. Like why not build a company? So that feeling actually came after the hackathon. Like it's quite doable and we could see it happening. And obviously there was a lot of encouragement from my CEO or my manager, who is Ranjit. So he said, why don't you pursue it, whatever you want to do? So we basically started off as a side project. And while we were at Pratilipi, and we didn't know what idea to pursue, it was like we wanted to build something really big, and especially for India first audience, especially for Bharat first audience, the audience that Pratilipi was catering to. So we tried running ads around multiple ideas, and this one idea came out distinctively well. Can we create a community platform where people from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities can jam according to their interests? And at that time, we could particularly see this coming up well as throughout the world. And Discord was a new concept in there where you can create a community and people are getting into those communities and chatting about what and what not. So when we discussed about this idea with Ranjit, so he was very, I think he gave us that confidence that this is a great idea, which can be massively big. And I think that created a confidence in us, like, why not at least try it? So that was a time when we just created a beta app, launched it on Play Store, saw some traction, great engagement, and then we basically jumped full-fledged into it.
Awesome. And this is when, again, you obviously have your co-founders as well who jumped on board this with you. Was this, personally, if I ask you, right, was this always a plan that you wanted to sort of start your own company, jump into entrepreneurship? You've done stuff like this before as well. So what about the rest of the team? Like, how, I'm asking because you guys are one of these few stories where you just mentioned, right, Ranjit and the team at Pratilipi even encouraged you to sort of take this journey and, find something and then expand on it instead of while you were at another very high growth company.
Correct.
So what was that always part of, let's say, your plan that, you wanted to do something of your own after this?
Absolutely.
And what about everyone else's
So
plan?
I think entrepreneurship was always there at the back of my mind. It used to come at the forefront in some waves, but this got to forefront after Hackathon. And because of Ranjit as a mentor / CEO / manager, he also basically helped me pursue that. So that gave the fire to that being in the forefront. About the team, so team was very excited, like, because they could see some traction and some engagement around this idea. So they could see that, yes, something is happening and something big could happen. So they joined with me. Obviously, everyone took his own time. Maybe Naveen joined after a couple of months. Mohit joined after a couple of months after Naveen joined. But everyone took his own time to see what is working, what is not working. But finally, everyone was onboarded with the idea.
Wow. And again, kudos to Ranjit that he allowed so much of his team to leave from a company in Bangalore, no less. So it's rare as well as encouraging, right?
He believes in long-term games so much. Like, I do believe in that, but to execute it is very difficult. But he believes it in and executes it as well. So he's like, even if your company does not work out, you may end up joining Pratilipi again. That will work for me better. Or even if your company works out, I'll end up hiring much more folks because of the branding that I'm getting. So the long-term game, definitely Pratilipi has.
No, I think you're right. I think that's a big part of how he thinks about things specifically, right? The idea that just do the right thing and things are going to basically people will recognize that and realize that, right? Exactly. And I think that's it's been really instructive for us as well. I guess we should let people kind of just at least make this that IVM is owned by Pratilipi. We should just kind of do a quote unquote disclaimer or all of that.
All of this plugging and the praise of Ranjit is very genuine. It's not like he has forced us to say all of this on this show just because we are part of the group.
I can testify. Yeah,
but. This is the reason I asked is because, again, we meet a lot of founders and their stories. Very few of them have this sort of an origin story where, you were encouraged and incubated almost in a already high growth. I would say not a full-fledged company yet, right? Even Pratilipi itself is a startup. Like, you hear this happening in a Google or a Microsoft or somewhere else. but very rarely in, or even a Flipkart for that matter, or a
right.
I don't know, Zomato, Paytm, there are mafias. But I think it's good to see that it's happening even in a fast-growing, yet to sort of peak company.
Right.
So that's great. But coming back to Kutum, what you guys built, like that hackathon idea to in variations to what it is today. Tell us how that journey has been and a little bit more about your sort of unique take on the product.
And also just like, what is the product, right? Like, I mean, like, I think that, just kind of giving that to people as well, the idea that what are you seeing it as, what's its utility, who's using it and why they're using it?
Right. So let me first take this question. What is Kutum and who is the TG that we are catering to? So Kutum is essentially a communities platform. Simply put, anyone can create a community, anyone can join a community at Kutum. But what's so special about it? It's built for organizations. So if there is an organization like Teachers of Bihar, so it's a well hierarchical organization, structural organization which exists, and there are about 3 lakh people inside that organization. So we basically go to the president of that organization and say that if you are running your community on WhatsApp, you have to run multiple WhatsApp groups. The chat interface is not appropriate because anyone can plug in any chat and then it becomes a spam after some time. So why don't you use a forum kind of a structure where you could bring all your WhatsApp groups into one single group? And plus, there are obviously 3 or 4 more features for which they decide to move on from WhatsApp to Kutum. But this is the main pitch that we give it to organization heads/presidents, and they get onboarded to Kutum. So this is the main TG we are catering to, which is organizations which have at least 500 to 1,000 people.
Structured organizations. Correct. Like structured groups, not just your family WhatsApp groups.
Yes.
You meant legit
structured organizations, which may or may not be, but mostly registered with even Government of India as an organization.
And is that the only way to exist on Kutum, or have you allowed sort of open groups as well?
So that works as a growth strategy for us. So community is a very interest-based group, right? So we wanted people with very high aligned interest. So something like a formalized organization is such a high identity to me that it becomes a very high aligned interest. So we wanted to onboard them first and then basically increase the size of the concentric circles. So we are currently only catering to organizations, and then we'll open up the platform for anyone and whoever who wants to create a community.
What was the need that organizations were or what was lacking that Kutum kind of helps them with, right? I mean, like, I get WhatsApp messaging and stuff like that and kind of try and taking away messaging, but I think that there's more to it than that you guys are offering, right? Can you speak to that a little bit, maybe?
So mainly 4 things. One is obviously the size of the community. So if number of members are greater than 500 people, it's difficult to manage 3 or 4 WhatsApp groups. Second is the UI UX. So they would want to move from a chat to a forum-based interface. Third is the monetary incentive. So they have enabled online membership fees, which they used to take offline or via PhonePe or Google Pay. So that process was very inefficient. Now it has become efficient on Kutum because it's just a one click away for them. And fourth is the iCard. So they can have a digital iCard on Kutum, which will be given to all their members instantly, instead of basically printing an iCard and then couriering it them to their members.
Can you speak a little bit about the feed aspect? Because I thought that to me was one of the more interesting things I saw on the website.
Feed as in the UI UX, the forum structure?
Yeah, the feed, the forum structure, yes.
Yeah. So what used to happen on WhatsApp is, let's say, admin used to give a message which is supposed to go to every member. And then people are basically supposed to discuss on that message. On WhatsApp, since there is no threading, it used to be so spammy in between that to search or to look for messages, I had to scroll up a lot. And it used to basically be very disorganized. What happens in a forum structure that, first of all, threading happens. So let's say if admin has written something where people has to discuss or members has to discuss, it all goes in comments. And then there is reply on comments. So there's a double threading on top of the post. If you have to search or you have to go back to some thread that you were looking for, it's much easier on Kutum. So if you want to imagine, it's something like Slack, but for these organizations, it's difficult for them to understand the Slack's UI UX, but it's easier to understand Kutum's UI UX.
Yeah, I was going to say it sounds like Slack with threads, but obviously it's more to it than just
Correct.
messaging.
Correct.
And again, if I can ask, you must have looked at the score, let's say, the spectrum of products out there for accomplishing these sort of use cases, right? Slack, like you mentioned, is, very corporate, very company team oriented product. Discord, you mentioned, was sort of coming up, but again, it started in gaming. It still is very sort of gaming centric. Was there a reason why you chose to build this in a particular way? It's a very VC question. Like, what was the addressable market you saw? Like, did you do some sort of math around it saying, this is the big enough section which is unaddressed, to go after?
So we saw that there are about 3.5 million NGOs which are registered in India with the government. And I think only about 10 to 15% of NGOs register themselves. So we saw that there are huge number of organizations which need a product to effectively communicate with their members. And it took us at least 6 to 8 months just to digest the fact that WhatsApp groups is not working for them. So what I believe is social networks are built on just one nuance. So it's difficult to describe why Clubhouse is built or why Clubhouse is growing. If one can say that audio one can do in YouTube also. Just switch off the video and one can do audio live streaming. But I think just that one nuance is enough to build a new social network. So for us, just this converting messages to forums, having all the members inside one community was enough to provide that Delta 4 value prop to these organizations. That why don't you come from WhatsApp to Kutum? It's exactly like how these tech companies have come from WhatsApp to Slack. These organizations are coming from WhatsApp to Kutum.
Very interesting point you made there, Abhishek, like that one nuance for a social network. Is this like an established understanding of how social groups form or how like social digital experiences generally happen? Did you, again, I'm asking for that inspiration, or was it more data driven or was it more hunch driven and iterative versus, like wide gaping opportunity which no one was jumping on?
I think it was 95% hunch driven and then iterating on how is it working, what is it working, can we double down on something and not. But I was very clear, and so I keep following Andrew Chen and most of the A16Z partners. And I like them because they're really good at predicting or investing in social products. So I could see their thesis on TikTok, let's say, that just a short form video, which could have been done on YouTube, but there's a new platform altogether that has massed billion users. Yeah. Similarly for Twitter, like it's just a short form content, like 280 words, but it has massed more than 1 billion users. So some nuance or some format on top of which a new social network can be built was deep inside me already. It's just that we had to try and iterate and see if it is working. If it is working, we double down on it.
Amazing. And what were the first few sort of feedback that you got from, let's say, your communities, right? Where people who you convinced to join. And again, this is a Bharat product, as you said. So how were you able to do your seeding? Again, you guys are in Bangalore. Largest communities are probably around you, but it's more diverse. It's more deeper than that. Tier 2, 3, 4, maybe. What was the early experience of getting the first few customers or rather users like?
So initial 10 admins / communities were difficult to crack because we first searched for such WhatsApp groups, which are multiple in number, run by the same admin. And then we tried to contact him. And then we tried to pitch what Kutum is. And they said, nah, let's leave it. But then again and again and again and again, we could finally found this 10 admins. And then they basically started gathering members into their communities. So we got about 10 communities and about 5,000 members overall. And then the viral loop started. So these members who came inside the community also had their own communities. So they said, why can't I create on Kutum? So we started getting emails that I also want to create a community. And so that's where the whole journey started. And we went from about 10 to currently now about 20,000 communities. And from 5,000 members to about 15 million members now.
Wow. And these are all registered users in a way, right? So when you say 15 million people, it's very different from some other company saying we have 15 million customers. These are registered users who are identified people who are in some or the other community for a purpose.
Absolutely.
So it's very sticky audience.
Absolutely.
Right? Even more so, I would say, than a B2C sort of social network, or like a open social network like WhatsApp or something else, right? Because this is not just a user of the tool, but you're also you are a defined user of some community or a member of some community. So you're there for a purpose.
Exactly. So you basically attach your identity to that community, and that is why you are very, very, very sticky. It's exactly like Slack. So if there is a Slack for Kutum as a company, so I would not leave it because I am working in Kutum.
As long as you're there.
It's exactly like, so we have a group of Vidyut Karamchari, which is the electrician workers. They would not leave it because their work is that. So
it's where they find out about things they need to know.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's actually really powerful from that sense.
So it's official.
Yeah.
And it's the official product of that community. So it's again not that it's a ad hoc thing started by someone else. It's an official product for that community. So in that sense, would you say so that makes you a B2B product, right?
Yeah. I would try to put it as
that's what you are?
B2B2C. That's rightly put.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So Abhishek, I want to get into a little bit more detail of the interesting quirks, a few things that you mentioned. But before we do that, let's take a quick break and come back and talk some more.
Sure, Silalita.
So, Amit, Intel's impressing me yet again.
You heard about Intel vPro, huh?
Yeah, I did. Exactly. I mean, imagine you're a security and IT manager. There's nothing like Intel vPro out there. It basically helps you protect your entire organization's computers from like cyber attacks and basically keep them functioning all the time.
I know exactly what you mean, right? I mean, like cybersecurity is like a major deal these days, right? I know that both at work and at home, I'm really taking a lot more care about these things than I used to.
Exactly. And the way I see it, right? I mean, Intel has obviously developed this a lot. They have something called a threat detection technology. They have something called a hardware shield. It's basically everything that you need to protect your entire organization from stuff like ransomware, crypto mining, all of these latest sort of threats that are out there.
And you know what's really cool? It's not just that, right? They also have this below the OS security, which is basically used for hardware and firmware changes to identify when stuff happens over there or when there is malfeasance happening on your application or data protection stuff. This really helps with memory corruption, all that kind of stuff, right? So they're just basically kind of helping to really reduce the number of attack surfaces an organization has.
That's what a business needs, right? I mean, pretty much a business wants that, okay, I have one platform and I get all my checkboxes around, all these various small things that I need to protect it. So it's good to see that Intel is developing a platform that's built for businesses.
Yeah, and it really is, right? I mean, like even the cloud-based manageability of all these services, right? So basically everything can be done remotely, whether it's managing or repairing these systems. You can just basically nobody has to go anywhere, especially in these times. I think that really does help.
Oh yeah. I mean, during work from home, it's basically exactly what you need. It's a godsend sort of technology.
Amen to that. And so remember, everybody, just go check out Intel vPro and Intel's other amazing products at intel.in/IT heroes. Remember, Intel vPro, it's built for business.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. And Abhishek, you shared quite a bit about the origin of Kutum and obviously the kind of user base that you cater to, which is amazing. But given that you are a B2B2C and a social network, what was the initial resistance from people to move? I mean, you talked about how it seems obvious, WhatsApp groups don't scan, other tools may or may not be perfect, but what was that initial resistance like? Because I think that's the hardest hurdle to sort of cross for any social network, right? Of any form. So what was that initial convincing? What did it take?
It took a lot. It took a lot. So I think there were basically two kind of hurdles. Number one was convincing the admins or the presidents to move from WhatsApp groups to Kutum. So basically create a community for them on Kutum. So that was the first 10, 15 admins that I said. Second hurdle was getting their members also on Kutum. So just because a community admin would say that now we will be on Kutum, people would not maybe move. And that's where I think even Slack faced challenges, because even if a tech organization wants to move from WhatsApp to Slack, it has some friction in the beginning. But once they start onboarding them on Slack, and once the people see the UX after onboarding on Slack, then is the time they stick to the platform. So I think that's what happened on Kutum as well. On the Hurdle 2 especially, so we basically started inviting the users ourselves. So for the first 10 organizations, we used to call users, especially the high spreader users, I would say, like who can influence, let's say, another 20 people to join. So it's like a manager in a tech organization. If we can convince a manager, his team will come. So similarly, we found our managers in these organizations and used to call them and convince them to be on Kutum. And and our pitch was literally, why don't you just come for 3 days? Just come for 3 days, be here. If you don't like it, we can definitely go back. If you like it, there is no problem. You can continue it. Plus, you are also monetizing your organization on Kutum. So you have some benefits there as well. So why don't you just try it? So it took a lot of calling. It took a lot of doing stuff what does not scale, but that basically bore some fruits for us. So when these 10 organizations, we could see that, yes, now it has scaled. We found a playbook that X, Y, Z, and then the organization thrives on Kutum. So we then productized the whole thing that we used to do.
What was, like Facebook has this, I think, invite 15 friends and you will become a sticky member. Do you have anything which you have, your North Stars, which you've identified in the user journey where this means?
So we have seen so for us, communities on Kutum are very large. So there could be 1 million people inside a community. There could be 1 lakh people inside a community. There could be 10,000 people. But we have seen if a community crosses 200 members, then it does not stop. It keeps on spreading till the whole organization is covered. So that's our magic number. So can we cross from 0 to 200? And that's where we put a lot of efforts on the activation.
And even with you mentioned monetization, right? Is that something which you focused on from day one, like make it worthwhile for your communities to make money? But like a lot of them are, you said also NGOs, right? I'm not sure how the monetization works in those sort of cases. So talk a little bit about the mechanics of.
So for these organizations, they basically monetize themselves in 2 ways. Either by membership fees. So if it's a formalized organization like Teachers of Bihar or Panchayat Ward Sachiv or Karamchari Sangathan, then they take a special membership fees, which is like maybe 100 rupees to 500 rupees a year. And that's what they wanted to take online and make the process easy. For organizations which are non-government in nature, which is like NGO and who do not want to take membership fees, which are open and stuff like that, they take donations. So we enabled both of these functions inside our app. Like if you want, you can take a membership fees. If you want, you can take donations. So when we had both the modules, I think we basically got more viral and more admins used to come know about us.
And your monetization model is a percentage on the fee? Or is it? Okay, all right.
So
or was it actually, or was it like seat based like Slack and other?
No. So we take X% on membership fees and Y% on donations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really.
Oh, so that means you need. Yeah, it's a transaction-based model. What made you build that? Because if you're saying that membership fees sometimes are basically just sort of token maintenance fees, right? A lot of these organizations are just built small groups collecting money to do very, very limited. In fact, in the old days, probably it was literally for feeding the same snacks during every general body meeting. So what's the, I would say, the volume that you guys are dealing with, and why do you think that how did you hone in on that monetization model is what I'm curious.
Great. So we were very clear that to monetize, we can actually try, or we have 2 models to try. One was the B2B model where we charge X rupees a month to the community admin. And second was a B2B2C model where we take a commission on the transactions that are flowing through us. At a scale of 100,000 organizations, when we calculated, the commission on transaction model trumped the fixed charge from admin drastically. So that's where we said that maybe it does not make sense at 10,000 organizations, but when we scale to 1 million organizations, it makes sense. So why not go via that way? So even if it is a small amount, at scale, it is an outsized amount.
Yeah, just to get the details of that, right? I mean, it's also you make it sound so easy that, hey, we did the math and obviously we chose one and people just agreed. But it's also not so easy, right? I mean, you can't just layer fees and expect people to think, as users, to believe that, oh, this is justified, is what the word I was looking for. So what was that? Was there any sort of testing, field testing, A/B testing involved in trying this out? Because as an organization, transactions happen a lot, and even the company knows that your users know they're paying you more versus paying you a fixed fee. So,
do you charge users more if they are paying via Kutum as opposed to what they were paying as a normal membership fee, or is it the same fee?
It's the same. It's the same.
Okay.
But the number of members paying has at least doubled for organizations. So if you take a random sample of 50 organizations out of 20,000 and you ask them why do you pay commission to Kutum, they would say that when I was collecting it on PhonePe or Google Pay, the collection was X. Now it is at least 2X.
Right.
So even if I pay 10% or 5% commission or 20% commission on top, it's nothing.
Right.
It's beneficial for me to pay to Kutum.
Okay. And I'm guessing that is part of the thing here as well, right? That, I mean, like, you are able to capture more, especially for the paid organizations. It's probably less admin headache and all of that to kind of collect payments as opposed to, like, getting a whole bunch of different, like, 103 rupee checks or whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Although all the checks has been removed, it has been replaced by UPIs, but still the maintaining UPI is a problem. Who has paid, who has not paid, and then keeping a recurring subscription, that's also a problem. So that's what Kutum uses for them.
Right.
What you're describing is like a very large fintech component to your platform now that I'm realizing.
I think it will be easier to raise Series B now.
We're not social. We're social fintech.
Yeah, that looks good now.
Exactly.
I wanted to ask, are there other things that you're looking at from a monetization perspective, or is this the model that you want to kind of say as this is what we're doing for the time being, or are you looking at other things as well?
There are many things that admins are asking us. So, for example, they're asking us for ad spaces. Some admins are asking us to do e-commerce inside their communities. Some admins are asking us for matrimony. Some admins are asking us for job-related services and stuff like that. So there would be different modules. These would be monetization modules. But what I have learned from social networks or reading about social networks is the way social networks work is by first creating a large network. So if we just stop at whatever we are at right now, it will be difficult to sustain at that. I think it will maybe go down and die. To even sustain, we have to build at least 100 million people network here on Kutum. And to do that, the prime focus is on growth and engagement rather than on monetization. So once that happens, we can introduce multiple modules that admins are asking us to.
Okay, I have a question. It's going to sound very off the wall to you in some ways, but so based on what you're describing as the long-term future in terms of monetization, right? A bunch of different modules that can be connected into different communities based on what those communities are. Does that mean that you're looking at this as platform more than just social in some sense as well? Will you be having external developers come and kind of connect into Kutum? Is that something that's on the cards, or do you see this as a product being driven entirely internally?
That's the part which is most exciting to me, in fact. So can we build something like Shopify where external developers can build these modules? And these modules that I can think may be limited in number. It can be like, let's say you can do buy and sell, you can do maybe job services and stuff like that. But I think maybe there are other developers who can think 10,000 more things on top of that. So if we can basically ship just the infra where others can build modules, that would be amazing for Kutum.
Yeah. This is when the valuation went up, when he changed the pitch to this.
I think just the fintech part
that's what
just the fintech part was enough.
Was enough. This is the reason for that 24 hours, or else you will miss this opportunity. This is the reason. That's saying light bulb moment has happened. But Abhishek, jokes apart, you mentioned early on that there's so much iteration that you did and you discovered these things as you went along. A country like ours there is infinite diversity, and from what I'm hearing, infinite feature requests also, right? Because everyone wants everything. Once they sort of latch onto a platform, people keep asking you for more and more and more. Quite the opposite, just to build on what you ended up disrupting, was WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp in a way WhatsApp literally built 0 features and yet grew to what it was today. You're doing a unbundling or bundling of WhatsApp. I don't know what the right methodology to speak about this is, but you're taken one of those aspects and you're building further on it and you're continuing down this path. So where do you see, what is like back to the addressable market question, right? Is it still going to remain for, let's say, these organized communities long term? I'm sure your 100 million number will be met by then. What is the big audacious goal which you see for your platform?
Right. If I see now and just retrospect something, why did Kutum work? So I think what WhatsApp is allowing to do perfectly is manage small groups. Like if I have a group size of 25 people, 50 people, it works perfectly fine. I don't think I need any other feature on top of WhatsApp, which is already there. The problem happens when group size increases drastically. So if there are 2,000 people, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, WhatsApp is a substandard medium to basically create your group on.
Can I also add Facebook groups in the mix? Because before WhatsApp, it was actually Facebook
Absolutely.
groups.
So Facebook,
which I don't know if people resonate with that in India, maybe.
No,
or
to
was
an
it,
extent, but I mean,
was it
Yahoo
just that?
groups
Like,
too. That's the genesis of this, right? In some ways.
Groups.
Right. So the problem with Facebook groups, it again took us 6-7 months to internalize this. But the problem with Facebook groups is Facebook is a platform for connecting with friends. And on top of that, they have put news and super viral entertainment content. Now, when a user goes into the group, first of all, the friction is there. Like I have to switch a tab, go into the group, etc. Second, when I go into the group, another user from the group can basically see my profile, which I don't want. It becomes difficult. And even if Facebook introduces a feature where someone else cannot see your profile inside a group, the insecurity is there. What if he sees my profile? What if he sees what I'm doing personally? So just because of that, it took at least 200, 300 calls to figure out why is it not working. Like no admin literally said us that we have a Facebook group. And we used to ask him, why don't you create a Facebook group? Why do you want to manage on multiple WhatsApp groups? And they used to say these reasons, but we used to think it is just a surface level. We have to think in depth. But it took us time to internalize that this is a major problem with Facebook groups. And that is why platforms like Reddit and Discord are coming up, especially in US and other parts of the continent. But I think the major vision that I have, can we make Kutum a default community platform for large groups? So if anyone anywhere wants to create a community of greater than 1,000 people, I think he should first choose Kutum over anything else.
That's a good way to put it. And community, not, again, you're saying distinctly from, let's say, the Slack. You don't want to sell to companies.
Correct. No.
Where it's employee-company relationship. That's not the relationship. Correct. You want this, the community piece where everyone has a voice and everyone has a sort of independent identity and a loose sort of connection with the org.
Absolutely. Perfectly described.
Very cool. So Abhishek, as closing thoughts, you guys are obviously a super technical team. You guys are building a social network. It's not like technically there's a lot under the hood to manage, a lot of data, a lot of, I'm sure there's some secret sauce around you make it, how your product has shaped up. Do you want to do a shout out to, your journey ahead and why people might want to collaborate with you, join you? Obviously, give us your, let's say, a Twitter handle or LinkedIn, wherever you are available for people who are listening to this in case they want to reach out.
Sure, absolutely. So we are very lucky to be on a growth curve. I think what we have done till date is iota of the growth that we can do. Idea is to grow from these 15 million users to 100 million users in the next phase. And we are looking out for literally the best talent out there. Our team is very small right now. It's about 12, 13 people. And it's going to be small given that it's a social network that we are trying to build. And that's why we can leverage, and we have this leverage to basically just hire the best talent that we can find out there in the country. So across product, design, tech, support, if anyone believes in communities, if anyone believes in building social networks from India for the world, definitely you can reach out to me on Twitter as well as LinkedIn. You can search Abhishek Kejriwal Kutum on both the platforms and you would get it.
Cool. Awesome. Also, I'll just quickly remind everybody that please, we really do appreciate ratings, reviews, anything, any kind of feedback, or, write back to Shiladitya or me on Twitter as well. We can engage with you there. But yeah, just interact with the podcast. We really appreciate that.
And we used to have a Slack group. I wonder if we should have a Kutum group instead of our
users. Sure. Let's give it a
try. Of our
try.
Listeners.
Let's give it a try.
We're not a registered organization, but...
we can try to open, yeah.
But Amit, that's a sign for us to... if you're listening to this, write to Amit saying if you want the Slack group back.
Yeah.
To talk about IBM and the Shunyavant.
We can figure that out for sure. We have the Shunyavant Slack group, which we can kind of get activated. It's just that it died. Nobody was really active on it. We never got to our 200 people that Abhishek is talking about. We never got there.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need that for the...
I think that's the magic number we have to figure out.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah. Abhishek, thank you so much. This was, great to hear your journey and the story of Kutum. Well, like you said, there's so much more to go, but it's amazing that you guys have, done so much to build in this one direction and found so much success. So kudos to you, the whole team. We are obviously all going to wait to see where you all take this next. And this is good to reconnect again.
Sure.
So thank you so much.
Thanks, Shiladitya. Thanks, Amit, for bringing me out here. And
thank you. Thanks so much for
coming. Yeah, thank you.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton speaks with Ken Honda, Zen millionaire and best-selling author in Japan. His new book, Happy Money, The Japanese Art of Making Peace with Your Money, teaches us how to improve our relationship with money. On Cyrus Says, founder and CEO of Finway, Rachit Chawla joins Cyrus to share some great financial advice on low-risk and no-risk yields. In the current power vacuum that exists in Afghanistan, will Russia step in? On All Things Policy, Aditya and Ruturaj seek the opinion of Ivan Klesch. On The Habit Coach, Ashton chalks out the differences between a workaholic and a high performer. And on Smarter with Sid, Siddharth analyzes if the back-to-theater experience will change consumer behavior and attention span. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. That is the most helpful thing that you could do to help us out. And finally, this week, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intel vPro. We really do appreciate the support. This is what makes it possible. Hi everybody, just wanted to ask everyone for a quick favor. We're running a brand survey right now and would really appreciate it if you could let us know what you think about the advertising on IVM. Go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and do let us know. As part of this, we'll be selecting 10 random participants and sending them some IVM swag, so do fill out those surveys.